Okay, good job. I mean, we call it the afterthought technique. Some other courses I was in the past, they call it the Columbo technique. Some of you may or may not be familiar with an actor by the name of Peter Falk. He was in a detective show in the 70s called Columbo, and this is what he would do. He would come into a scene where there was a crime. Could be somebody got beat up or maybe somebody got murdered, right? And it was a pretty good show, but it was a long time ago. And he'd come in and he'd have a little notepad and he'd come in and he'd interview somebody. He says, so what time did you get in? Okay, what this? And, he's talking like a detective, right? Mm-hmm. He'd say, okay, so if I have more questions, here's my card. You know how they do. They see it in, Law and Order nowadays and all that kind of stuff, right? So, and then he'd say, okay, and then he'd turn, take 2 steps, and he'd go, oh, listen, I was just thinking, and he'd catch them off guard. They'd be like thinking he's gone, their guard comes down, they're relaxed, right? And then he says, what about, and he'd catch some people tripping over their words or something. Now, I'm not saying we're trying to trip up the sellers, but what we're trying to do is when we stand up, and the sellers kind of go, inside, they're like, okay, we can relax now, he's leaving, and I'm not trying to overplay that part, but I'm just saying there is a change. And you just go, oh, hey, I was just thinking, and then like, yeah, and that could be just the one little ingredient where they just say, well, actually, we just want to get more money than what we figured out with you, so we got to think about it. You say, oh, well, everybody wants more money, I get it, so, why don't we look at the comps again and see if there's any adjustments we can make. May I grab a seat again, please? And 9 times out of 10, they'll probably say, sure. And you sit down. Now you're back again, still working some stuff out. Isn't that great?
Yes.
Okay, so remember, most of the time you don't have to do all this stuff we just taught. They're just going to tell you that they want more money. Probably when you did the net sheet, or if it's a commission thing, they may have told you. There's just a number of things that will draw out any objections and concerns. I just don't want you to leave when they say, we just want to think about it. Can you promise me you won't? Yes. Can you promise me you'll at least try to use any number of these, these techniques to get the real reason? Okay? Yes. What does that say there? You've given up what?
2 hours of your time.
You deserve to know why they don't want to listen now and what they need to think about. All right, so let's move forward to this. Ooh. Objection handling. And some awarenesses, and it's the dialogue on how we segue into handling an objection. Okay, so there's a couple of awarenesses you need to have. Objection handling techniques do not work most of the time, but they all work some of the time. So write that all down. Once you have that written down, once you put up your hand, because I'm going to get you to tweak this saying a little bit. Okay? Make sure you write it nice and big. And look at that again. Objection handling techniques do not work most of the time, but they all work some of the time. Now this saying will apply. Now you got to understand the different levels that realtors are at. Remember these groups over here, I just pushed them aside. They're not making any money, so they don't even convert the stall into the objection. They don't handle objections. They fold like a cheap lawn chair every time. They barely do the proper steps. They might go on appointments and they don't get nothing. Okay, so I'm not really talking about that group. Now, moving up here, I had a couple more groups here that are making some money. The group here that's making 20% or 80% of what's left from the big group, or they're not a big group, they're a small group, but they make big money. That second group, remember this group makes 80%, the 20% makes 80% of all of the income in the real estate industry. This next group makes 80% of what's left. Those folks, right here, the techniques won't work most of the time, but they'll work sometimes for them. That's why they're stuck in this group. They're still not really good at closing.
Cha-ching.
Right? Cha-ching. Okay? To be here, that cha-ching, that closing, cha-ching. All the time. All the time. Never, ever leaving without trying, all that. So you want to be in this group?
Yes.
You have to try every time, and you will get more success. If you don't try all the time, then you're in this group. And if you don't ever try, you're not organized, you don't do any training, you don't commit to your training, or like I said, it's worse to get the training and not do it. But you'd be in these three groups, right? You don't want to be there. You want to be here. And so I want to change a couple words here. What you'll do, I'll tell you what they are, but you won't remove a word. You'll cross it out, and you'll put the word I say above it. And the reason you do that, and you know, I don't want to change my PowerPoint because I'm just saying, if somebody here doesn't master this stuff, but they're aware of it and try it sometimes, then they won't work most of the time, but they'll work sometimes. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So now what I want you to do is look at the word most and just put one line through it right now. And then go to the word some and put one line through it. And I want you to flip those words. So I want you to put objection handling techniques do not work some of the time, but they all work
Most of the time.
most of the time. I want you to still be able to see it the way it was. And then I wanted you to cross it out and say, this is who I am. I am going to master objection handling. I'm going to make sure that I've converted the stall, but I got the objection. I'm going to handle it every time, and you're going to move up to this group. That's making over $300,000 a year. You guys ready for that? Because you can't get that. It's not like, oh, I got my license, I'm rich now, I'm in this category. That's what everyone thinks when they first get licensed, right? Oh, I got my license, great, I'm going to be rich, I'm in this category. No, you're not, you're way down there. And you're not going to make nothing at all until you start mastering some of this stuff we're teaching. And the more you master it, the more you move up, because the more you master it, the more you close to Ching, the more you recognize objections and concerns, and you handle them, and closing again to Ching, and you move up, right? As soon as you get this idea that I can do it a different way, you get stuck in one of these spots. I know, I tried everything the wrong way too. You don't have to if you just take my advice and just do it. So, objection handling techniques do not work some of the time, but they all work most of the time because you're role playing to the best of your ability, you're paying attention in class, you're listening to the audio tracks all the time. You're phoning me when you have an opportunity to take me up on my offers, right? After the course is over, you should still meet with people and role play. You should still listen to the audio tracks, revisit the course, make sure you download everything because the passwords and everything change a few weeks after the course. So you download everything and you just stay on track. Make sense?
Yes.
How bad do you really want to be in this group?
Yeah. Really.
I mean, I wanted to be in this group so bad that I was like, focused so much on trying to get the understanding of the training and committing to it. And it didn't take long to get there, I might add. Okay, so you need to really, really want it bad. And then you commit to doing it. And, you know, if you can get yourself to do some of the things you don't want to do, like proactive prospecting, so you can become the realtor you want to be, you know, is it worth it? Come on, let me hear it.
Yes.
It's worth it, right? So, I got a little bit passionate there. So there are as many OHTs, or objection handling techniques, as there are people. The reason you have to understand that is we may have 8 objections specifically to manage this afternoon or handle. There may be a couple more that we talked about in previous lessons. But each person perceives or deals, or each seller perceives or acts different for sometimes the same objection. Like commissions. Give me a reason that a seller would want me to charge less. What would be their reason?
Money?
Yeah, I know it's money, but what? What was the money? Why do they want me to do it for less? What's the purpose of that for them?
So they are greedy.
So they'll net more, right?
Yeah.
They think.
They are greedy.
I'm just saying, that's in their mindset. Right? I had somebody that money had nothing to do with it. He said this. I said something to the effect that, you know, by paying less for the commissions, you know, a serious buyer may pick up on that if we're not offering enough, and they may want the savings. So you may be paying the buyer the savings instead of me, so, you know. And he said, I don't care. He said, I don't even care if I lose money. I hate realtors.
Whoa.
So is that a different reason that he wants the commissions cut?
Yeah.
Okay, so don't get right into that. Let's try another one. Some people, want to renovate. So you tell me why they want to renovate. Why do they want to renovate and sell their house? What do they want?
More money.
More money. Okay. I had somebody that said they want to renovate. They didn't want to raise the price at all. They just wanted to make sure it's really nice for whoever bought it. What do you think of that?
I had that.
That's nice.
Yeah. They're fine with that.
Yeah.
Now, somebody that's greedy, as he said, couldn't even relate to what I just said. They would think those people are nuts.
Yeah.
I don't think they're nuts, because I understand that.
Yeah.
They were thinking, they actually like to make sure their place is nice for the other people, and they want to make sure that their nice people are buying their place. It's almost like a personal thing. So again, was that a different reason than making more money?
Yeah.
So, there are as many OHTs as there are what?
People.
Yeah, so you may have 10 different objections that we're aware of, but there may be 30 different reasons for those ones. Depends on the person. So don't fool yourself and think that it's always, let's say, greed or always the money thing. So the reason I say that is when they do say they want to do something, you're going to ask them to explain why they feel they should do that. And don't assume you know the answer. Plus, when they explain it, sometimes they explain it so that it's not an issue, or they explain it so that you know how to handle it better. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay? So, handling objections, you should only do that when it's necessary. And they will try to get you to handle objections on the phone. So let's see how much you remember from lesson 2, let's say. Somebody asks you a question on the phone. How much do you charge? What do you say?
Well, I haven't seen your property.
I haven't seen your place yet.
Let's get
Let's
together.
get together, yeah. Well, I was hoping to get, X amount of dollars, or how much can you get for my place? And this is on the phone, guy. What do you say? Well, let me check on the computer? No, I haven't seen your house, let's get together. Doesn't matter, how fast can you sell my house?
I haven't seen
Get
your
together.
place.
What's the market like? Well, you can't quite say it the same way, but you still have to say it similar, right? Well, that's a good question. Well, let's get together and I'll bring over some information on the forecast. Oh, by the way, I was going to mention this earlier. So, I teach in a lot of different cities, and I have a lot of different coaching clients in different cities. And just in the last week or so, some of you, you guys can tell me in a second, but some of my coaching clients have gotten an email from their local board about when their board forecast is. Did you get one yet for Calgary?
Yes.
Okay, and so if you didn't get it to your email, then your real estate board doesn't have your email address. Or your email program on your computer is out of hand and you're not looking at your computer and you're not checking your email. Okay, so by the way, if on emails, if you have a lot of unopened emails and a lot of drafts and it says you have thousands of emails that you haven't deleted and all that kind of stuff, you'll lose money in this business. A lot. You won't be able to keep control. So clean up your emails, pay attention to things like something from your board, and your board forecast should be in January sometime. You should go to it, make sure that you get the information about what 2023 is going to bring to the sellers and buyers. So do yourself a favor, make sure you go to that, or get a copy of it or whatever and review it. Fair enough?
Yes.
So it'll help you to handle objections. Somebody said, what's the market going to be like? Somebody wants to wait till summer. What if a seller knew right now that by this time, by June and July of the next year, like 7 months from now, if they knew for sure that their house was going to be worth 20% less, no, that's an annual figure, so 10% less. If they knew that for sure, they would either do one of two things. Tell me what's one of the things they might do. If they knew for sure it'd be worth 10% less.
List now.
They would list now, or they would keep it and stay for a couple of years. Make sense? They don't want to, they shouldn't wait till June or July. And I just want to let you know that there was an RBC forecast that came out last week. And here's the forecast. You want to hear it?
Yes.
Until this adjustment period is over, which will probably take anywhere from a year to a year and a half, properties in Alberta are going to drop 20%. I'll make a note of that if you have to. From RBC. Nobody seems to be writing it down, but it's up to you. You probably remember it, right? They're going to drop 20%. And interest rates are going to go up at least 1.5 to 1.75% from where they are right now. That's the adjustment that the federal government's trying to do. And then after that, properties will level off. They won't go down as much, or they won't go down. And that'll go for another probably a year or so. And then maybe after that, they might go up. So according to what I just said, maybe when do you think properties will go up?
In 3 years.
It'll be like a couple of years. Yeah. Okay, so they said 18 to 20% actually, that's RBC. So when you see your board forecast, see if it's the same. Okay, so if you're talking to a seller, I think we just want to wait till the summer. Okay, okay, so then I'm going to give you some dialogue, and then you're going to try to handle the objection by giving them information. And if they believe what you said, that it might happen, you may get a different result than waiting 6 or 8 months. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And no, I didn't make up any of this. I had a fella that's with Royal LePage. It was on one of my other meetings on Zoom, and he went to the Royal Bank forecast, and that exact information I just shared with you is what he shared with me. Okay, so properties are going to drop. Now, just remember, every little neighborhood has different pockets. Some places prices don't drop as much. Some places they drop even more. But that's the general forecast. I'd be curious to see what your board says. But once you know, your job is to share it with the people, right? So what if somebody says, you know, we were thinking of selling now, but we're hoping to get more and wait till the summer because we don't have to move to Toronto until the summer, right? And then they found out this info, they may say, oh, no, we better list now. We might have to move in the spring then because the possession, they can get, everything that's happening now, the possessions will be in the new year. Would you agree?
Yes.
I mean, there's the exception, you get 15, 30-day possessions, but most are going to be 45, 60 to 80 or something, right? You know? So if they want to sell by June, they might be able to wait till February and maybe get that possession date, but between now and February, prices will probably drop at least 5%. That's the forecast. How often are forecasts right anyways? Probably 75% of the time?
Yeah.
At least. And if they're wrong, they're not. It's not like they said they're going to drop 20% and it went up 20%. It won't be like that. Instead of it going down 20%, maybe it goes down 10%, but it still goes down.
Yeah.
So that's what a forecast does. They pretty well know which direction it's going to go. So handle objections only when necessary. I got a bit off track there handling an objection actually, so let's get back on track here so that we're done on time today. So if you get an objection on the phone, I just asked you, what do you do when they ask it? Like, how much you charge, how fast can you sell, what could you sell our house for, what's the market doing? Well, you always said, let's get together and we can go over that in person, yes? Okay, so now you know about it. Here's the thing, when you get over there, remember, you pull up in front of the house, yes?
Yes.
Right? And you want to make sure you're focused. Give yourself a checkup from the neck up. Grab your stuff, walk, dress like $1,000,000, walk to the front door, ring the bell, smile, pay them a sincere compliment, take them to the kids' table, sit down, talk about anything but real estate. If they bring up the objection again, you tell them we'll get to that. And then you open up your book and you tell them the what? Sales process. Once they know that step 1 is this, and 2 is that, and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7, once they know the categories, they will, most of the time, nothing's for sure. Remember, you know, everything, when you're good, most of the time it happens. Some of the times it doesn't. Okay, if you're not really good, then most of the time it doesn't work, and some of the times it's the opposite. And so trust me and just say, I'm going to just do my best. So when you go over the sales process, without you actually telling them to wait on their objection, you've told them when you're going to be dealing with it. Like if they said price, just say step 4, we have some comparables for you, and we're going to show you how most successful sellers pick the right price. And in their mind, they're like, okay, we'll deal with that then. So you're actually dealing with the objection before you have to deal with it, because by the time you get there, sometimes it's not an issue, but it might be. But the sales process will help you deal with it in advance and either park it or it won't come up again. Doesn't that sound refreshing?
Yes.
Right? The next thing is, there's another way to handle objections. If they are adamant and you just get there, I want to know your commissions. You know, or I don't care about all this stuff, I want the price. Use the 3R technique. It's to be able to deal with everything later. Now, I think I told you last week what it was. Do you remember what the 3R was I put up here? What was the first one?
Repeat.
Repeat.
Reassure.
Reassure. And resume. Yeah, so you can write that down with those 3 R's. Repeat, reassure, and resume. So, no matter where you're at, it could be in the beginning. It's kind of like what you did on the phone. That's a good question. Let's get together. But in person, you go, that's a good question. We're going to get to that in step 4. So if you don't mind, let me continue on with step 1. Fair enough. And most of the time, they'll say what?
Yes.
Some of the time they won't, but let's go with the optimism side, right?
Yes.
And then there's other times when they'll say, no, I gotta deal with it right now. Well, that's a red flag. If they won't trust your process, let you lead the way, then that's a red flag, meaning you might not want to work with these people if they're like that. They may be a real challenge for you. It may not be worth it. Does that make sense? So you can either pack up and leave, or you can say, okay, let's deal with it right now, but it won't work as good. The best thing for you to do is still wait till after step 6, or in step 6, where you ask them the best closing question, and what's that?
And do you have any questions?
Any questions? Just those 2 words. Okay? And when do you think is the best time? What's the best time to answer or handle an objection? What do you think? When they ask you and you deal with it? Or ask them to do it later?
Later.
Actually, the best way is using that later, but never having to deal with it. See, the 3R technique or the sales process will get them to say, okay, we'll deal with it later, and then the process starts going. 15 minutes for the questions, 15 to preview the property, then there's marketing plan. And sometimes when you actually get to the point where it's coming up, it's not an issue to them anymore. And you never have to deal with it. It could be a commission thing, could be a pricing thing, could be that they're gonna hire you or not, but you start building so much consumer confidence that it's not an issue later, they don't even want it. They might say, well, we were gonna interview another person, but we don't want to now, we wanna hire you. What are we gonna do with that other guy? And you say, oh, no problem, I'll take care of it, I'll phone him. No big deal. But wouldn't it be cool if you park it with the 3R technique, and when it comes time that's when you deal with it, it's a non-issue? The sales process can do that for you. The only one that can mess it up is you, or if they literally are fighting you all the way, then it's messed up and you should leave. Make sense? All right. So doing something as opposed to nothing will always get you further. At least that's a good start. That'll at least get you moving up out of these groups that I mentioned. At least trying. Because you'll get better even with the rejection or with the negative responses. If you just keep trying, you're going to get better. Especially now that you're aware and I've given you the proper tools. And you can listen to the dialogue over and over. Isn't that right, gang?
Yes.
Okay, so this afternoon after lunch we're going to give you 3 different ways to handle each objection. It'll be in your notes. You'll only role play 1 for each though. Because we only have so much time. So make sure you listen to the audio tracks. I hope you all are. I get the sense that most of this class is. It's really important that you're able to react with dialogue without thinking because you heard it so much.
Yeah.
You can still have your own personality, but when I give you some good words to use and certain sentences to use and certain steps to use, just do the best to stay on track, be yourself, but you'll see the training. I just joke when I say, you'll be saying something and you'll go, where did Dwayne come from? You're not going to sound exactly like me, but you're going to have the similar words, but sound like you. Make sense?
Yeah.
So, just remember, it's not the technique that we're role-playing that handles the objection. There's actually a process that starts handling it in advance, and these are words. These are not words you use on the phone. These are not words you use in different steps. These are used when you're actually handling an objection. I'm going to give you those words. We're going to role play those words a couple of times. We'll do it once and then we'll switch. And in a few minutes, in about 10 minutes, if you can check to see it, or let them know that they can text you or something, Peter, or knock on the window when the food is here for lunch. But just hang tough. Don't get up and use the restroom yet. Just hang tough. Let's do this role play because it's really important. It's really important that we understand that, what did it take for us to get the appointment? How much time have we spent here going through these steps and verifying that they are sold on you and your company, that you showed them how most successful sellers pick the right price, that they understand the forms, and now they hit you with a reason that they don't want to list. But you can handle it. But here's the words. Are you ready for it, gang?
Yes.
Okay. So let me teach it and show you how to do it, and you'll role play. So to teach it to you, just remember this. This is what it's called. The first step is don't fight it. Don't fight it when they hit you with an objection. Even if it hurts to hear it, like when you cut your commissions, don't fight it. We're going to deal with it. Don't worry. Don't fight it. Like if they say, would you cut your commissions? You go, no. And you look upset. I had one realtor, I mean, it works for him, but he says, as soon as they ask me, I leave.
Oh, boy.
That's what he said. And he wasn't just talking about commissions. He said, as soon as they're not cooperating with anything I say, I leave. Now, you could do that, and he must have a really good geofarm area and a lot of past clients, and nobody hardly ever asks him, but that's what he said. So that's up to you. I know that if I think what I would do is if somebody said, would you, or could you do this, or could you do that, I'd try to follow this. Okay? Now, some things you won't appreciate, how they, you know, I mean, you can say I appreciate how you feel on anything, because that's how they feel. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yes.
So, one of those objections, you know, we just want to look before we list. And so you look at them and you go, remember, you still have body language you can use as an advantage to get them to, you know, stay on track with you, or even voice inflections, facial expressions. You got to use all this stuff, right? So you want to look, you actually want to go look before you list. So look at me, see my look? You all see that? I didn't sit there and go, so, so you just want to go look before you list, you know, making it look like it's not a problem. You want to look like it's painful. You want to go look before you list? You know, painful, sort of, but not too much overacting. Do that, right? And they go, yeah, and you say, okay. Well, you know, see the pause there? And it's, you know, well, okay, well, I can appreciate how you feel. But you know what? Just so that I understand, why do you want to go look before you list? I'm just curious. Can you see the acting a little bit?
Yes.
Right? It's not canned, even though you know, you could make it sound canned if you did. It could come across like an interrogation. It's not supposed to. Same with the what is it is a technique. It's not an interrogation. It's to find out if they need some more info. This is the same thing. It's not an interrogation. It's to see if you can join forces with them. So, like, who's trying to sell this place? You and the seller, yes?
Yes.
You need to be a team. It's not you against them. It's you and them together. In fact, your fiduciary duties even say that, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so watch the acting again. So, do you have any questions? And they say whatever. And you go, oh, so you want to do that, hey? Okay, well, I can appreciate how you feel. See the forehead, you kind of looking, you know. Just so I understand, could you tell me why you want to do that? Now I want you to circle number 2, or at least circle where it says the number 2 and question it. Just circle that part that's written in your book. Circle that right now, okay? As soon as you've done that, put up your hand. Now, the reason I got you to circle it is when you ask them to explain a small percentage of the time, but it is a portion of the time, they will have a conversation, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, that's why you need all decision makers present, and they may talk through it and say it's not an issue, now that we've talked about it. You know, it could have been they were thinking of renovating or something, and they told you that in the beginning, and you went to step 2, you previewed the property, and they pointed out this and that, and then you had a few comments, and they realized they don't have to renovate as much or at all. But of course, the guy, sometimes they can be a little stubborn. Hey, is that right, ladies? No?
Yeah.
Yes? And they forget, they don't listen. So then here, this is an example. So, there's the forms. Any questions? No, but I think we're just going to renovate like we said. Oh, okay. And now, here I thought that was not an issue. So I go, oh, okay, I can appreciate how you feel. So, just so I understand, why do you want to do that again? And he says, well, you know, and he starts talking, and his wife says, well, hey, we just went through this. We don't have to do that. He goes, oh, yeah. Short memory, right? And he turns and he says, oh, I guess we're good. Okay, good. Any other questions? So, number 2, when they go to explain, sometimes they explain it so that it's a non-issue. It might be only 1 out of 50 times, but it can happen. Are you with me? Most of the time they'll explain it, and they'll probably say exactly why, what you think. Why do you want to cut the commissions? So, see those words there, those 5 words? Just so that I understand. Don't just say, why do you want to do that? You know, my wife and I have been together almost 30 years, and when I first met her, I remember I said something and I asked her a why question, and she looked at me, and I'll never forget it. And I think that's why we've lasted so long, because I don't do this anymore, but she looked at me and she goes, I don't answer why questions. Good to know. So, and think about this, if you say something to somebody, they look at you and they go, why? Like, go ahead and don't say nothing else, don't laugh, don't smile, don't nothing, just look at the person across the table from you and just look at them and go, why?
Why?
What?
Think about how that feels. Think about how that feels. It's like, right? We're going to do this. Why? So don't do that. Instead, you go, oh, okay, I appreciate how you feel. Just so I understand, I'm just curious. And then you can say why. Just curious why you want to do that. It's a softer approach. It's not as confrontational. So the words are right there for you. Just say, we're going to role play it. Just so I understand, why do you folks want to look before you list? And they'll probably say what you think they'll say. But let them say it. Fair enough? And right after they say it, then you need to isolate it and just say, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And if it doesn't make sense, don't say it makes sense. So is that the only thing preventing you from making a decision? And they go, yeah, that's it, And you may even go again and confirm and say, so you're okay with the price? You're good with my marketing plan and everything? Yep. So if I could show you that by doing it in reverse, that you might be losing some money, would you still do it? So you see how I got those words, but then there's dots? That's because it could be a different objection. If I could show you that by cutting the commissions, that you might even lose some money on your purchase, would you still do it? Or the words may be changed, they may alternate. They may say, if I could show you some details that could help this be a little more convenient for you or whatever, I'm just thinking of another objection. If I could show you that by renovating, that you might lose some money, would you still do it? But that's how that kind of works. Does that make sense? When you're role playing, I want them to say, no, I wouldn't do it if I knew I was going to lose money. Okay? And then you need to handle it. So you just say, well, here, let me show you something to help you to decide. Every single objection handler that we have is also a visual. Every single one. So, this is not them, by the way. But I'm just saying, you will actually have, like in the back of that listing presentation, you have or in that digital, what's that drive called again?
USB.
USB. The USB stick, everything's in there. You just want to have a few copies printed off, and you'll say, so whatever they say, whatever it is, you say, I appreciate how you feel. Just so I understand, why do you want to do that? And they'll tell you why. You say, is that the only thing stopping you or preventing you to make a decision? Yeah. If I could show you that, that might slow down things for you, or that might cost you in the long run, would you still do it? Well, no, but how's that going to cost you anything? Well, here, let me show you something that'll be decide. And you hand it over to them, whatever it is. And then you go over it. We're going to go over it. And then when you're done going over it, you close. And you say, so that makes all the difference, doesn't it? And sometimes, or most of the time, they say what? Yeah, it does. So, here, let's just sign the documents and move forward. And you close, right? Cha-ching.
Cha-ching.
So there's a big difference between what you know and what you do. It is what you do that makes your results, yes? So you could be in this class, taking all this lovely information, say this is really good stuff, and never use it. It's happened, or maybe some of it you don't use, which I hope